Tonight is the barefoot Logies moment on the red carpet. And it's weird but fabulous.
I've always had this sense of I'm too big. Too big. I felt like I've got three people's personalities that got squeezed into one body, and I've been having to figure out how to be with that my whole life.
This is wild. How does this even happen?
Now, I feel like there is absolute space for me to be as big as I am and not feel like there's a culture saying you must be small. Or if there is, I'm not interested.
You probably want to see what I'm doing, don't you? You want to see that.
I think the world is probably finally ready for Gina. She's the icon of being at home in the wild.
My family think I'm bonkers, but they're not at all surprised that I'm doing something like this.
Alone Australia, it's the most legit survival challenge out there. It's the one where the 10 people go out into the bush with 10 items each, and the last person to come back wins it.
Oh, this moss feels amazing.
Everyone was like, as if that hippie lady who dances on the moss and just goes around singing and talking to the animals is going to win.
I got a fish. I'm eating fish for breakfast. Oh my goodness.
Gina's probably the last person to do a reality TV show. But it quickly became clear that she wasn't just surviving to win the show, she was there. That was her life. She could have stayed years.
Oh my God, Gina, you literally look like a model. This is insane.
Gina is a force of nature. Her approach is all about working with nature rather than against it. It's not man versus wild, it's kind of women in love with the wild, and then wonderful things happen as a result of that.
So how do you feel?
Yeah, I feel beautiful. This rustic paradise is where I was living when I applied to participate in Alone Australia. I think it was very good training, actually, because there isn't even battery power here and there's no running water. The possum gets in and smashes everything, Princess the possum. The doors don't close. It's not weatherproof. But I love everything about living here. Listen. Can you hear a single man-made sound? There we go. Come on, baby. Come on. Thank you. It's always magic every single time. It just feels like a miracle every time a fire lights. I get this excited every time. Just get it going.
Get it going.
Whack it in there. Yeah, whack it in there.
So beautifully.
I've spent my whole life learning tools of connection, and I love sharing what I've learned. I'm basically creating an environment where people can connect with wisdom that they already have so that they can learn for themselves.
So let's have a quick chat about site selection. Dirt Time is a rite of passage program for women to be able to go and sit on their own for 2 days and 2 nights in nature. There's nothing to read, there's nothing to write. There's water to drink, no food, and if it rains, then there's a tarp, and then that's it. The vigil is very simply fasting from all things familiar. We take away so many of the things that we in our modern lives use as distraction and meet ourselves in that discomfort and stay there long enough to find out whatever it's teaching us. I think I've always been okay with being alone. I was an odd
child. I was a definitely strangeling, and humans never made sense to me when I was a kid, but nature always did. I'm the eldest of 3 girls. There was 3 of us in 3 years. We were lucky enough to grow up in Jervis Bay. It's a wild place that's teeming with life.
I'm an artist, and so we had an artist studio set up here. Doug's a scientist, so there was, science experiments going on. It seemed like a huge adventure.
I went through a taxidermy phase. I would find an animal beside the road and decide I was going to stuff it. And the first animal I found was an echidna.
I'd encourage them always to do the wild things.
One would go running off without it.
We'd go out bush, down to the beach, or do something outside, and that was heaven.
10 years later, it was still hanging around, and Mum would be like, Gina, what are you doing with this echidna skin?
Our house became a menagerie. Her bedroom at one stage had a massive, almost like a 10-foot high bird's nest, a bunch of sticks and some kind of animal that's been rescued in her bedroom, shitting all over the floor. And it was hilarious. It was brilliant.
She often went to school with some little creature in a pocket that there was something sad and wrong about, and she'd had an eyedropper and she'd feed it during the day.
I got known as the crazy bird girl. I was, chewing up seed and spitting it into birds' mouths at school. Gina's kissing birds, she's vomiting in their mouths. For me, that was just normal. I think I would have been diagnosed on the spectrum, and probably ADHD as well.
She was really bullied. I said that there were people out there that were her people, and they were really there, and she was going to find them. And, well, was I right or was I right?
When I was in my early 20s in Sydney, I discovered the gay scene. All of a sudden, I found all of these people who just loved me as I was. They loved my flamboyance, they loved my creativity, they loved the wildness.
Gina was always the one on the podium, wearing the sexy outfit, having the best time, just radiant in a way that was electric.
I got to not be rejected, and I got to be as big as I wanted to be, which in those days was probably bigger than I needed to be.
Oh my God, look at you, Mum.
What?
You're adorable.
Mum knew she was adopted, and we used to fantasise about who her mum actually was. Yeah. And then when Mum called to say that she'd found out who her birth mother was, she said, actually, it is someone famous. And it turns out it was this incredible woman named Charmian Clift.
Charmian Clift was a journalist. She married an author called Georgia Johnston, and one of their most famous books is My Brother Jack.
And that was her in the early time when she was starting to write with George Johnson.
She was this sort of wild bohemian trailblazer. The prevailing wisdom was how to bake a cake for your man and how to look after your man. And here's this woman writing essays on multiculturalism, in the 60s. It made such an impact.
She didn't care what other people thought. She knew what was right, and she knew what was right for her, and she just followed that trail. Charmian, Sue, Gina.
Finding out that Charmian Cliff was her grandmother was one of the best things for Gina. It gave her an excuse to be what she was.
I felt like I made a little bit more sense. Yeah. I'm not surprised that she ended up taking her own life, because I feel like she was too big. I feel like she was too big for the life that she was given.
Because she came to us as a little chicken, and our granddaughter Whitney.
I've never really had a sense of, I need a career. I went to university in Sydney and did a triple major of PR, journalism and advertising. But at no point did I ever want to get a job in any of those things. I ended up managing fitness centres. I ended up working as a massage therapist.
It was always pure excitement about the next adventure, the next thing to be downloaded and put into the toolkit.
When Gina was in her late 30s, she heard about Tom Brown Jr.'s tracker school in New Jersey in the States. It's a legendary school.
It's rooted in the Native American traditions, and it's really about learning the skills of surviving on the land that ancient cultures used for millennia.
It was so much fun learning the real nuts and bolts of how to survive in any conditions in the wild. I remember turning up on the first day and there was this tall, skinny, young, hot guy, and it was Lee.
I was just coming to the end of a year in the bush. My kind of cat-handed approach to coming onto her was I kind of sidled up to her and cleared my throat and I said, so you're Aussie, huh?
Yep, Aussie as they come, mate. Turned around and walked away. I was a lesbian at that point. I hadn't really been near men for I don't even know how many years.
I was like, okay, the game is afoot.
As I found out, I think he was 26. I was 38.
She brought him back to Australia, didn't she? And I did my usual, oh my God, what's she doing now? One of the first times I met him, he had a bundle of sticks and he was sitting on a bench or something at Bondi Junction with this bundle of sticks. Just seemed totally insane.
It was really strange and difficult and kind of overwhelming coming from hunting and tracking all day and then finding myself in Bondi and having to relearn how to be a modern human.
When Lee first came to Australia, I was 40 and I did not think that I could get pregnant. And boom, there I was.
I was elated. It was a great, beautiful surprise for both of us.
This was her miracle baby when she fell pregnant with Blaise. So we were just incredibly happy for her.
I found a little lump in my boob and thought, shit, I better get that checked out. Got a phone call that night from my GP saying, it's cancer. She said, it's very bad news. You must terminate this pregnancy or you will die. That's when the voice rose up. Like this ferocious wolf mama just arose in me and said, no. No, I will not. So I found a doctor and said, hi, pregnant, cancer. And he said, oh, you don't have to terminate or die. We give pregnant women chemo, that's fine. Chemo babies are usually tiny, like 1.5 kilos, 3 pounds. Blaise was 110th percentile the whole way. She was enormous.
Blaise was born on June the 23rd in 2010. I definitely had always wanted to be a dad, and there was this feeling of kind of completion, this little creature in my arms.
She had the wide face, the big mouth, and we just had adventures. She was my best friend.
I had this commitment. I want to give her as much of a wild upbringing as possible. So we were going to the bush, to the beach, climbing trees, just really helping her to grow up feeling like the bush is home. Yeah.
When we first moved out of Sydney with Blaise, Lee and I started running rewilding programs.
Finding things with your hands, so building shelters, collecting water, making fire.
Rewilding is about introducing nature connection to everyone.
The idea is to be as at home in wild nature as we're at home in our houses, where we can find shelter and water, fire and food. I remember the day when Gina said, I think there's a lump in Blaise's stomach.
And I, come over here, little chicken, just lie down, let me feel your belly. And I felt it. And anyone who's ever felt cancer knows what cancer feels like. As soon as I felt it in her, I knew what it was.
Blaise had this lump removed, this cancer from her abdomen. That's hopefully the end of the story. Come back in 6 months for a checkup.
We went home. And she just lived this beautiful life and ran around in her fairy wings. And then she got sick and she got a cold that turned into something else really, really quickly.
They've done a scan and she was absolutely filled with tumours the size of grapes and tomatoes, they said. Yeah.
So they gave her more chemo in 3 days than I had had in 3 months in that little body. And I watched it hit her. I watched it just, I felt her presence just collapse into herself. And I knew she'd die. And I knew she was going to die.
Blaise was unconscious and on life support. And they said, look, it might be time to think about whether the right decision might actually be to stop trying to keep her alive in this way. And I started realizing or wondering where this strange noise was coming from, and then I realized it was from me. This animal noise was coming out of me.
I've howled and I've wailed and I've screamed at the sky to give her back, and I've done whatever it is that grief has demanded of me, which has meant that I have let her go. I've let her go. I've let her go over and over and over. I'm so much more as a human because of her and because of losing her. I'm not afraid of a single feeling that might turn up in me or anyone else. That's all her gift moving through me in the world. After she died, they said that there was nothing to show that it was because of the chemo. When we got married, our vows were to support each other in our soul journey, whatever that was. So Lee and I broke up because he was still a young dad wanting to be a dad. I had 5 miscarriages in 12 months. And I learned then that my body was done. And so it just made sense for him to go and do the thing that he desperately, beautifully wanted to do.
Hey, Dad, I can throw up her.
Hannah and I met on a program that Gina and I were running. And there's a little caterpillar in there that's yummy for eating. Gina and I were separated at this point. So I felt attracted towards her, but I was like, I don't think she's into me. But Gina was like, she's totally into you. So you can climb up the rope, yeah. Gina's a big part of our lives now, you know. She's godmother to our 2 beautiful daughters.
This one's so cute.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful because there aren't many wives who would be okay with the ex being around, especially when the ex takes up as much room as I do. We're about to be dropped into the wilderness.
We have to document this whole experience while trying to survive.
The Alone series started in the US, and it's the most amazing human experiment. 10 people are dropped in the wild, they get 10 items, and they have to basically survive for as long as they possibly can.
As soon as I knew I was going to apply, it was like a hook setting. But it didn't set in my mouth, it set in my guts. And then I became completely obsessed. So this was my preparation board. And I've written all over it, get fat, get fatter. Fat is fabulous.
The two things really that take you out of alone would be weight loss and malnutrition, or the psychological part about being alone. Well, I knew she had the psychological part absolutely sorted.
I started out at 76 kilos and I ended up at 94. This has got everything, it's hilarious. Fish traps, wallaby trap, duck trap, sleeping bag. Well, I didn't end up doing that.
It was filmed in the wilds of Tasmania, middle of winter, and my number one survival item was a sleeping bag. It's absolutely non-negotiable.
I can't stand sleeping bags. I hate them, I don't like sleeping in them, I don't like sleeping in plastic. And then all of a sudden the light bulb hit and I went, oh no, I can make a possum skin cloak. And then Jody can teach me how. I was like, what do you reckon? And you were like, hell yeah.
Yeah. I was like, yes, you are. That's what you're taking in.
Still smells like a loan. And it's a practice that's part of the First Nations history and lineage of this country.
We grow up with respect, responsibility and reciprocity, and that's just Gina's way of living.
Hello, lake. Hello, trees.
When I went in, no woman had won alone at all. So I wanted to be the first woman to win. It was the culmination of my entire journey, not only of nature connection, but also of resilience.
Sleeping naked in the possum fur is ridiculously fabulous. How glamorous is that? Not your normal idea of suffering away on alone.
Everyone probably thought that she would tap out early because she's the hippy-dippy, dancing around, having a nice time, not taking survival seriously.
The day has come. I am heading out to actually look for food.
She doesn't even think about food for 3 weeks, and then she's just like, okay, it's time to catch a fish.
Holy shit, got a fish. Here we go. Ha, gotcha. It's a boy fish, and she's got spermy bits. Because that is life force.
Over the next 67 days, being in such deep communication with the land itself that whatever I needed, I would ask for and the land would provide. That, to me, is connection with country.
Sorry. Got a wallaby.
We get to see a lot of Bear Grylls, we get to see a lot of that kind of military style of survival.
Oh, wow.
We don't get to see so many women doing their thing and rocking it, I think.
Thank you.
So it's 10 weeks in and it's Mike and Gina left on the show and everyone's watching, just glued to the screen.
There it is. The last piece of saved food. Spin around.
They do these regular med checks and I think they started to watch Mike quite closely because he was visibly very skinny. Eventually they made the call that it wasn't healthy for him to be out there anymore.
The safest thing to do is to extract you.
You know, while you're out there, you don't know if there's one person left or there's 5 people left.
Morning, Gina, how are you?
Okay, how are you?
So you're just here for the med checks?
You have absolutely no idea that you've won.
All right, so Gina, 67 days.
67 days. Now that it's sunny, I'm good. The last probably week to 10 days has been hard. I love being here, but I want to hear someone else's stories. I want to hear someone else's life. It's more that this place is giving me a no fucking way! What the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
You did it.
Oh.
You're
here.
Can I give you a hug?
Yes.
Yay.
No!
Well fucking
You won, Gina. You won.
well fucking done.
Oh my God.
You did it.
Oh my God.
You're such a fucking legend.
Oh my God.
I didn't expect that I would win. I just knew that I was only going to come out if they pulled me out. And I didn't suffer out there. I didn't suffer.
So this is the nest.
It's beautiful.
This is my nest.
Survival is about being at home in wild nature.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It had to be you.
Yeah.
There's kind of this joyful approach, winning out over the kind of the clinical, forceful, rigid approach. And it represents something profound, you know, much bigger than just what about survival skills. There's a philosophy in there that relates to the whole of life.
To be able to see that there is a different way, I think that it's actually given people hope. Now there's a chance for me to share this. I'm super excited.
So they've just come back from their vigil. And now we will spend time helping them interpret what happened. Like it's a big thing to go and sit for any length of time solo without any distractions. Often what people meet when they're out on a vigil is all of the ways they've overridden their own needs in their lives. And a lot of the tools that we give are ways to be very practical about getting our needs met in the world and in our relationships.
I've just finished a whole day and a whole night of sitting in silence. It was just this really deep sense of, oh my God, I don't have to try so hard anymore. I don't have to be an amazing parent all the time. I don't have to be the good daughter all the time.
These programs aren't about rejecting the world that we live in. It's actually the opposite. Like bringing more life and more vitality to our world of having to pay the rent, having to catch the bus, having to feed the kids, having to do the work, you know, all of that. What we're looking at is finding a way to give it more meaning. Every time we turn off our phones for 5 minutes and lean against a tree or go outside and hear those kookaburras. Like really hear those kookaburras. We're remembering how to be plugged in to the battery of wild nature. And the more comfortable we are with the wilderness outside, the more comfortable we can be with the wilderness inside. I'm being styled for the Logies. I feel like a marshmallow. I get to play dress-ups. Yay! Ha! 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 This is such a hell no. I'm good with cleavage. That is absolutely hilarious.
Oh my gosh, Gina. This is it.